Hi, welcome to Salt and Burn This. I'm Sammy.
And I'm Valerie.
And this is our Supernatural Rewatch podcast.
Each week, we're going to break down an episode in order with lots of details, so nothing's left out.
And we throw in some personal nuggets and stories and research to mix it up just a little bit.
Because not only are we fans of the show, but like Sam and Dean, we've also had our fill of road trips.
Yeah, but for theater, not for hunting ghosts and demons.
And not in a super sexy muscle car.
Anyway, shall we?
We shall. Oh. Off to a great start.
Yeah. Have we been gone that long? I forgot how Zoom works.
All right, so I just added 5 seconds to the podcast.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. I am sorry that this took a little longer than I had wanted it to. It is my fault. I'll take the blame. But my family's going through some health issues, so I've been at home in Oklahoma for a little while. At the same time, I've kind of received news of friends and people close to me. It's all cancer related, so let's just put on the record: cancer sucks ass.
Fuck cancer, I believe is hashtag fuck cancer.
Yeah. And I kind of went into a mode. Maybe some of you can relate. Maybe you can relate, Valerie. I just shirked all of my responsibilities. I just kind of went into a catatonic state for a minute, and it was like, I can't do anything right now.
Shirk away. You're absolutely allowed. This is cancer. You were there when I found out about you know my sister. You know, and it literally talked about rocking your world. And then you have to come out of your world and look at the person who actually has cancer and their world and what's happening to them. And, you know, it's just a cycle of cancer sucks.
It does. Absolutely
cancer sucks.
So to lighten the mood, let me tell you what I did instead of my responsibilities. So I'm in general a YouTube junkie. I go in phases, especially sometimes I just will go on binges of YouTube videos. And it can range from anywhere from it used to be pretty much strictly beauty related, like makeup tutorials, face painting, etc. It's kind of evolved into the web of my YouTube algorithm is interesting. So this one girl that I follow, her name is Raw Beauty Christy. Obviously, she was a beauty person, but she has a second channel where it showcases her and her husband doing a lot of upgrades to their homestead. So they have gardening videos, they have their home remodel. It's kind of the stuff that I'm into right now. I also just really like her. Her personality is really fun and interesting to watch, and it's calm and it's no drama. So, or was it last week? Yeah, last week. She got a bunch of quail eggs in order to hatch because they went to raise quail. They also have chickens, but for some reason they also decided to get quail. I can't speak on why. That's it's theirs, but they decided to put a live stream inside of the quail incubator
box, right? Oh no! How wonderful was it?
I sat and watched these fucking quail eggs just wiggle around, eventually hatch, which was kind of a pretty amazing thing to watch. 3.5 days. Solid. Just solid. I was glued to the fucking screen watching these eggs. And then there's also a live chat going on at the same time, the live stream. And there's a bunch of us, ladies just in our mid-30s and up, just be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm stuck watching. Never in my wildest dreams would I thought that this would be entertaining to me. And it is. So that's where my head was at, if that says anything.
Baby quail to the rescue. Whatever whatever it takes. I just had this flash of, and then you realize that you're on a 1-900 site instead of like 1-800 phone call,
Yeah.
which of course doesn't exist, but still.
No.
Oh, well, hey, I'm glad. I'm glad. And so how many quail hatched?
15 out
Holy crap.
of 24. Yeah, and they are so cute. They're like teeny
Are
little
they
birds.
fuzzy? Are they fuzzy instead of feathery?
Yeah, they were fuzzy. And then when she put them into the brooder, like after they were in the incubator, it kind of looked like these weird little bugs just like running around because they're so tiny inside of this thing. It was so cute. I couldn't
I want to
stand
be a
it.
quail.
And well, they only live like 2 to 3 years. Like that's their
Oh.
lifespan. Which I also
Oh, so
learned way more about quail than I ever thought that I would know. All right, season 4, episode 12. Possibly my favorite title ever. Criss Angel is a douchebag. Sam and Dean investigate the activities of a trio of magicians who are using a grimoire to execute real feats of magic. Written by Julie Siege and directed by Robert Singer.
I just have like a splotch of info about this
Do it.
episode.
Go for
So,
it.
one, if you know who Criss Angel is, he still is a magician, but he was a very big and popular magician back in the 90s, right? Yeah, like 90s.
Yeah, 90s, early 2000s.
Early 2000s. And he was that guy who would like dark hair, dark makeup, very goth, and which went against all older magician styles and stuff. Less flashy colored flair and flippy capes, less Siegfried and Roy, and more, dark gothic and using the supernatural and the occult as a guiding force for his magic. The title Criss Angel is a douchebag was actually taken from a radio show in LA. Do you remember Kevin and Bean morning show?
Yeah, I do.
On K-Rock. They were the ones who coined the phrase Criss Angel is a douchebag. Which I thought was pretty funny. Throughout this episode, there's a couple of nuggets of movie names and TV references, modern TV references in this episode, which we can get to as we do it. I don't know if you noticed that in this episode, one thing was missing.
The car?
Yep. There's no baby.
Okay. Yep.
This is the first episode out of all the seasons that baby is not
really
pictured. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Not even parked in the background. Yep.
Yeah.
No baby. No baby. So since we didn't have baby, I feel like we had to have super big guest stars in this episode.
Yes, we did. Richard Libertini, whom I know I've seen around, but he plays one of the older magicians, Vernon Haskell. I put him in this list because in his IMDb, like, him from list was Fletch.
Yes.
I haven't seen Fletch, but I know that you talk about Fletch all the time. Or like whenever somebody from Fletch or a moment that was stolen from Fletch is pulled in here.
Yes.
That's where he comes from. He was also in Popeye. He was a voice on DuckTales, which I watched as a kid. And he was in Law and Order, the original one, as 3 different characters.
As a lot of people do.
They do, yeah. In fact, all of the guest stars that at least I'm going to name are from the Law and Order universe also. Michael Weston, who shows up as a young Charlie later on. I know him from SVU. He plays Olivia's lost or unknown half-brother until she finds him later for a few episodes. He's in the movie Garden State, which I really like. I remember him in an episode of Scrubs. Particularly, I think that was the first thing I ever saw him in.
I didn't know that he was on Scrubs.
He was also in Psych. Um,
Yes.
Here's a kind of a fun fact. In 2016, he was in a movie called Houdini and Doyle, and he played Houdini. So this
Oh, stop.
not the only
Nice
magician
call
role that
out.
he's had
Right.
is here.
uh-huh. But he's also the son of one of the actors in the show in this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he plays young Charlie.
Uh-huh.
He's Charlie's actual son.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. He's John Rubinstein's actual son.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah,
I did
so
not know that.
father and son playing father and
That's
son in this
awesome.
episode. Yeah.
That's really cute.
Yep.
Really cute.
He was also on House for a while. He had
okay.
a pretty big role on House too. So a face you're going to see if you haven't already. You'll probably
Right.
keep seeing him around.
Right. And wow, we have Barry Bostwick.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
So Rocky Horror Picture Show, obviously,
Yes,
as
yes.
Brad. Rocky Horror. He was the Mayor Randall in Spin City with Michael J. Fox for the entire run. He was the voice of, was it Grandpa Flynn on Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I mean, Bostwick's been around forever, and he came up through the ranks of like vaudeville and
he's done a ton of Broadway shows. So
he has awards.
Yeah, I would say he's maybe more Broadway famous than he is Hollywood famous.
Yeah, well, because he was the original Danny Zuko in Grease on Broadway. He won a Tony Award for The Robber Bridegroom.
That is my connection with him. Is I was in a production of Robber Bridegroom several years ago, like 2006 or 7 or something. But I was Rosamund in Robber Bridegroom, which was the lady, the love interest or whatever. It's a very strange show, but
well, and you and I just missed seeing him when we were in Lynchburg for an opera.
Oh, really?
He was performing in the theater because it was right before Halloween, right around Halloween that we were there.
Man.
He was there with Rocky Horror Picture Show as like a guest lecturer, as like the MC of Rocky Horror. And it's like that loaded out and then the opera loaded in and he was there. So we were down the street rehearsing, or I was down the street rehearsing. Yeah. You were dealing with the director. Yet, yeah. And then so he loaded out, we loaded in, and so our paths like crossed, but we were this close to Barry Bostwick.
Wow. Yes. Also, he was in SVU. He was in a few episodes as one of the evil attorneys, that represent the bad guys, and he was a very good bad guy attorney guy. Yeah. So those are my guest star highlights. I don't know if there are others that.
I just have one other, and I thought it was because you pointed. There's a number of episodes ago. I thought it was Hart, the werewolf one. You pointed out an actor to me. They're like, I'm surprised you don't know this actor, because they were from Stargate. And I was like, oh my gosh! And I thought it was a different actor from Stargate that you were pointing out. So I was wrong on two fronts when you talked to me about them. This actor that I'm about to name is the one I thought you were talking to me about.
Okay.
His name is Alex Zahara, and he played was it Vance, the jerk in the very beginning of this episode, who's like the asshole magician with the cape and stuff. He played like 5 or 6 different characters on Stargate because he works under prosthetics really well. So he was like he's one of their go-to performers if you need somebody who can stand time in prosthetics. Be
an alien or something.
Yeah. Gotcha. He was the most recast 8 times. I said 5 or 6. 8 times on Stargate because of his ability. There's also a number of times where he's there not in makeup. So he's this chameleon of an actor. So Alex Zahar. And so when I first saw him in this episode, I was like, oh, that doesn't. Well, I mean, he looks familiar, but not really familiar. But his mannerisms got me, and that's why I looked him up. I was like, "Oh my God, it's the guy that I thought it was the guy when it wasn't the guy." So
yeah.
That's who I'll. That's it. Those are my big cat. Okay.
And finally, before we start into the episode, we have probably the coolest connection to a supernatural episode yet, or that we've named yet, and probably will ever have coming up. We have a mutual friend who works for Criss Angel. He is the set designer. Specifically, I asked him like what his specific title was. Throughout the years, they have been production designer, illusion designer, and director of illusions, which is super
I want that on
cool.
a business card.
I know, director of illusions. So I interviewed him, or like we sent him some questions. We had to be very specific about the questions because he has a very, very strict NDA. Obviously, working for a magician, there are a lot of secrets that you need to keep for life. So we asked him questions around that. So we did not ask him, how do you do this trick? Because he cannot answer that for us.
Where did the pigeon go?
Yeah, exactly. But throughout this episode, I'll just scatter in his answers, and I'll save some for the end too. But it was really interesting to get like a industry viewpoint on the world of magicians. So
yes, I remember when I first found out that he worked for Criss Angel. Because I was like, where is he? Because it's like he was never with us when we were like getting ready for. I'm like, where is he? Oh, he had to go back to Vegas. Because I was like,
yeah.
Oh, he has to do that other side gig.
Right.
Oh my God. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear his answers to our questions. Yeah. Let's see. We can do our map quest. This episode takes place in Sioux City, Iowa. Didn't know that was a big magician gathering place. Don't think it is. No. But it is real for those of you who are wondering. Sioux City, Iowa is a real place.
It is.
I have stayed the night there and that's it. I haven't worked there. I was like way out of the way as far as for me, like my driving routes and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know why I was up there.
It's about an hour away from Omaha, or like near the border. It's right next to the border of Nebraska and Iowa. Because I wondered, it's like, have I been there? But no, I've been to Council Bluffs, which is right next to Omaha.
Real city, obviously, it didn't take place there. The shooting did not take place there because Sioux City looks nothing like this little city.
Dark alleyways.
The dark alley of Canada.
All right, let's get into this episode. So the recap. Very simple. It's 1,000% about Sam's psychic abilities and wrestling with the decision of something vague.
Something. Yes. Is he strong enough? Is he willing? Is he strong enough? Is he willing?
Yeah, that's all it is. It's little flashbacks of him being lectured about his abilities, not wanting to do them, etc., etc. That's it.
Right. So here we are in the now. It's Magic Week in Sioux City, Iowa. The opening scene takes place in a bar. We see a magician sitting belly up at a bar, and he's, doing card tricks. He's doing the old, is this your card trick? But it seems like he's having a little trouble. It's not as swift. When he goes to shuffle, sometimes the cards fall apart. But he tries to cover it, and the bartender's being really nice to him and being like, "That's okay. Show me another trick." But across the bar, he's being heckled by another magician, who is clearly a magician because he's wearing the black cape with the red silk and and he's
wearing a top hat too.
And a top hat, yeah. And he's got his assistant next to him, is like saying, "Stop being so mean, stop heckling this other magician." And but clearly the guy just goes on and is heckling from across the bar. And unfortunately, the bartender, even like in her need to try to make this older guy feel good about his trick, she's like, "Leave the old guy alone," which of course makes the old magician who's fumbling with the cards feel even worse.
Sad. Yeah.
That, the young, pretty girl is just, humoring him. And heckling guy ends up like spoiling the card trick. Once he does finds his way through the card trick, the guy's like, "Yeah, check his pocket." He slipped the card in his pocket and gave away the trick. Just a jerk. The guy's a jerk. He's a drunk jerk. And his assistant is not helping him and not be drunk. Yeah. And she's ineffective, I should say, at trying to.
Stop. Don't.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, you just leave the guy alone.
Yeah. So then a little bit later, him and two of his friends, I guess, are watching this guy who's the exact polar opposite of him with the dark makeup and the gothic music and the punk black clothes.
Rehearsing
his set. And
it's ridiculous. He flies in. I mean, the guy is literally doesn't just walk out on stage. He literally is flown in from above with the stupid douchebag music. I mean, the name of the song is Douchebag, right?
It's song, like, I don't know.
Rectify, sanctify.
I wrote down the lyrics later, so.
Oh God, yeah. I think the actual name of the song has something to do with douchebag.
Oh, that's funny.
But he, as he's rehearsing, he lands and he stops the rehearsal in a very diva way and is like, no, the lights have to find me. It's, so it's all about me, find me, and so the older magician guys who are watching this rehearsal are talking amongst themselves. And they're like, what a douchebag.
Yes.
What a douchebag. Yeah. I did a count, by the way.
I didn't do a total count. I did like per scene count.
Oh, okay.
But yes.
All right, we'll see if we get to the same number at the end. Okay. So, because the word douchebag is said a million times.
Yeah, at least in the first half of the episode. Then it kind of goes away. But
yeah.
So the old guys, or at least the two of them, are kind of reminiscing about the good old days, how they went them back. Remember when? And Jay, the guy that we saw earlier at the bar, is kind of chiding them for not getting with the times. It's like, yeah, this guy's a douchebag, but it's obviously working because he's bringing in all of these people. No one wants to see the old school stuff anymore because it's lame.
Yeah, he's the headliner. He's got the assistant. We can't even afford an assistant.
Yeah. Right. And he all of a sudden wants to try the table of death, which his friends are like, no, that's dumb. You haven't done that in years. You almost died the last time you did it.
Yeah, so let's pull out a stunt that we haven't done in years for tonight's show.
Yeah.
Because we know how well that goes.
Right. So then during his show, he straps in the table, asks the audience to check it. But even his friend / assistant is like, dude, I don't think you're going to be able to escape this. These are really tight.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like a table, and above the table is like this another table full of swords, that are pointing down like a pincushion almost. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So he's strapped underneath these blades of death.
Yeah. And then the trick is, it's held up by a rope, which gets lit by a fuse, and it will slowly start to snap as the fuse burns through it.
So that's through the rope. So he has to free himself or he's run through. Mm-hmm. I love the way they did this, though, the way they set this whole thing up. So the audience doesn't see him. To start the trick, they close these curtains and they shine a light from what we call upstage. So from behind the trick, so it's all in silhouette. So you don't actually see the physical person, you see their shadow. And you see, I almost said Barry. What is his name? What is the character's name?
Jay. The Incredible Jay.
The Incredible Jay. You see him, strapped to the table, and he's struggling dramatically, and the clock is ticking, and the fuse is burning, and the audience is somewhat engaged, not really engaged.
Yeah.
And then the rope burns, like it snaps because the fuse is burned through. The table of swords falls, and we see the shadow of Jay on the table get crushed with these swords, and the audience gasps. I have to say one thing before we get to the end of this the end of this trick. Mm-hmm. This setup, because I wondered why they chose this particular way to do these tricks. This is exactly how the scene was set up in Rocky Horror Picture Show when Frankenfurter seduces him. Yeah. It's all done. It's like shoot behind the curtain with the spotlight behind them, all done in silhouette. I was like, oh, what a call out that his big trick is the exact same seduction scene from
I wonder if Barry Bostwick appreciated that, because I know for a while he was trying to step away from the association
From
of Rocky
Brad.
Horror. He's just like, okay, can we stop?
Yeah, yeah. I think though that was so, I mean, unless you were a fan of Rocky Horror and saw it more than just once, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
you would have noticed the
Yeah,
call out. But it was very
right.
effective because they didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
do any like CG. It wasn't anything,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it was this is how those stunts are done is,
Mm-hmm.
behind the curtain. So thankfully, though, the curtains are pulled aside and Jay is alive. He is not strapped to the table. He has not been run through. He is alive.
Yes, and a little
But,
stunned. Both
and a
him
little
and Charlie seem a little stunned.
like, huh?
Um, yeah, but at the same, like just as you said, at the same time, Vance, the jerk from earlier, stumbling out of the bar, and then at the same time that the table of spikes has come down on Jay, Vance stops dead in his tracks, falls to the floor, and then you see through his white shirt pokes of red blood in the same pattern ish as the table of spikes.
Sores, right? So instead of Jay being run through, it looks like Vance is now dead on the sidewalk, bleeding from the wounds that Jay should have had.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
So that recap and things was almost 6 minutes long. I was like, this is a really long now
first scene.
Scene.
Oh.
Also, the douchebag count for this was 3.
Yep.
And I also want to throw in one of our friend's questions. You had asked him that you assume that everything is rehearsed, just like any stunt or dance or show. Would you have you ever experienced the magician suddenly throw in a last-minute stunt or trick the night of the show, similar to what Jay does here, and he does a few times more often? And the response is live shows are rehearsed literally hundreds of times to perfection, working out all flaws and sightlines. TV, by nature, is a bit safer, because he did also work on the TV show with Criss Angel.
Oh, Mind Freak, yeah.
Mm-hmm, and requires less rehearsals except when live performances in front of a camera. Rarely is anything tossed in unless it's been a part of the repertoire before.
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea of I haven't done this in years or I haven't done this in weeks, let's put it in the show. Yeah. No. I have to throw in a quick personal experience. The dance show that I just did, that I just finished. Mm-hmm. We had, injuries happen during the show. So we had to rewrite and rework the show each time we did it, because either somebody got hurt or somebody came back to the show, or we added somebody new to it. So it was like every day at the last minute, we were adding in something new. So there are circumstances where that is a need is a must for the show must go on. You have to make those changes and you have to do something last minute. But let's throw in a death-defying act at the last minute. No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so after the splash, we are on the street, and a film crew is focused on the Criss Angel character, whose name in this is Jeb Dexter. So it's a very obvious call out to Criss, like they're mocking Criss Angel. He's just being like, this is not a trick. This is real. It's being very serious and intense.
Don't touch me.
Yeah. It's doing like this overblown, fake demon possession, and does this card. It is kind of an impressive card trick if you were to see it in real life, where he throws a bunch of cards at a glass window, and then the card somehow magically turns into the inside of the window. It's stuck in the inside
stuck
of the
to the
shop.
glass on the inside. Is that your card? And everybody's like, yay.
Yeah.
And of course, it's like a younger group of like bystanders, and it's like hot girls and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's when Sam and Dean walk up in time to see him do this fake, demonic possession. And of course, a douchebag.
Yes. Dean is like offended at this. He's just like, okay, we fight real demons and real scary things because they will kill you. And this guy is just using them for some lame magic tricks.
Yep. But Sam's like, magic's not lame. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, that's right. you liked magic when you were a kid. And, Sam's like, yeah, it was a phase. Everybody goes through their little phases.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's still supporting, he's still backing up magicians, or at least
like,
magic.
You know what? It takes skill. It really does.
Yep. It's not just, douchebaggery. So they're on their way to go talk to, I guess, Vance's assistant, the dead guy's assistant, the one who was in the bar, not being able to prevent him from drinking.
Yes.
And she's packing up their hotel room. Looks like mostly packing up Vance's stuff, which is like all these little like magic tricks.
Yeah, there was some great visual gags in this. It was pretty hilarious. Except I was confused, like at one point she pulls a rabbit out of something, and it's a very cute, like furry bunny rabbit,
cute, fuzzy bunny.
And then she shoves them into a duffel bag, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Like, I guess the rabbit doesn't travel in a cage. I guess she's like, "Oh, there you are. Let me shove you into this leather duffel bag."
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny too, or odd, funny. Yeah. But I mean, she's pulling out like those connecting rings and like the scarves, the colorful scarves that are all like attached. So it's just like, will this scarf ever end? And Dean is watching this like, hey.
It's like, what is going on?
Yeah. But they're basically interviewing her, saying, was there anybody who wanted Vance dead? And she's like, well, yeah, because he stole people's tricks.
Yeah, everybody.
He stole their like sleight of hand, their scenic design. He was that guy.
So we did ask our friend, does this kind of thing actually happen? And he said, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. He said, those guys steal from each other all the time to varying degrees. It ranges from being influenced by another's idea to outright copying every single detail. The lack of creativity in the field has slowed its growth. And that's why when someone new comes along, i.e. David Blaine or Criss Angel, they get some notoriety because they're doing things a little bit differently.
Nice.
But yes,
still,
this is a thing.
Wow. So, they also ask, did you find anything strange or weird in his stuff? And she's like, well, actually, yes. And she pulls out a tarot card, and it's the 10 of Swords tarot card. I looked up the tarot cards in this.
Yeah, I did too, but go ahead.
Okay. So it's a picture of a guy who's been run through, who's literally on the ground being stabbed by like 10 swords, a la the Table of Death. And apparently the meaning, tarot, you can interpret it 100 different ways, right?
Yeah.
The first couple I looked at was the worst is over, or hitting rock bottom, but also being stabbed literally in the back. That was some of the things that I looked up. I didn't go too deep into it.
Yeah. Well, there's a way, I'm not that familiar with tarot. I've had a few readings done, but they've always been by people learning how to do tarot. So, I don't know how accurate it is, but it depends on like if it's upright or if it's reversed, they have different meanings.
Yeah.
So this one, the swords, it's like a suit of swords. So it's kind of like, a suit of hearts or a suit of spades, that kind of thing. There are some one-offs in a tarot deck, but this one being the 10 of swords means that there are other numbers of swords. But no, yeah, you're mostly right. It's like upright can be painful endings, deep wounds, betrayal, loss, crisis. Reversed could mean recovery, regeneration, and resisting an inevitable end. But again, all of this is kind of up for interpretation. There's not really a strict tarot Bible. Everyone has their own.
Right. And since these weren't like laid out on a table, a la dealt by somebody who's reading the cards, the interpretation is this was just put on somebody or put in his cape. So how do we know which way it was actually facing?
Right.
So anyway, not a good ending anyway. I mean, basically,
regardless.
Yes, I would say stabbed in the back, is kind of the, the good interpretation. So,
moving on, then we go to Jay's hotel, who is kind of playing with his card deck. He's a little bit more agile than he was we saw him earlier at the bar.
Yeah.
And his friend Charlie stops by and he's like, wow, how did you do that? I have, like, you couldn't even do it like the last time, barely. Like, I thought it was for sure you were gonna get stabbed.
Get stabbed. And Jay's like, I don't know. He's like, look, I can pull 3 aces out of a deck. I used to only be able to pull one, if I was lucky, so my sleight of hand is just like off the charts.
Yeah. So Jay is like so full of confidence that he wants to do the executioner.
Yet another new dangerous trick.
Very dangerous. So dangerous that Houdini wouldn't even do it. Which I did kind of look that up, and it's sort of true. I mean, there's no strict trick called the executioner, but it does involve usually like a noose of some sort. So the one that Houdini would not do is, I think, the one on the horse. Like, you sit on the back of a horse with a noose around your neck, and then like
you're in a straitjacket and you have to get out of the jacket before the horse
walks
bolts
away from something. Yeah. So Houdini did some really, really crazy shit, and he would not do that one.
He wouldn't do that. And just so everyone knows, he did not die doing a trick. Everyone wants to, if you want to know about Houdini, he died from being punched in the stomach before he went on stage.
Yeah, from a
like
burst
his appendix burst. Yeah.
But there's also like these, I did not know much about Houdini, but apparently there's a whole like conspiracy theory about like a group of people wanting him dead, and maybe they sent that person in there to punch him in the stomach and burst his, it's like a whole thing.
Wow.
But I couldn't get too far into it. I was like, I can't.
Yeah, I know.
I gotta pause on this.
Yep, I kind of did the same thing. I was like, got my information, gonna stop right here.
Yep.
Yeah. So Jay, super pumped, says, let's do the trick that even Houdini wouldn't do. Charlie is still like, I care for you too much. I don't want you to do this. But Charlie is, that's what he says, is I'm not gonna watch you die on stage. Not gonna do it. But then agrees to help him. But then agrees to.
Yeah, it's like Jay impresses him with like a really cool card trick that even Charlie is like, wow.
Oh, maybe you can pull this.
Maybe you can.
Maybe you can pull this off. Yeah.
All right.
So back at the theater, and this is at the small theater, not because there's 2 different theaters. I think there's the Criss Angel Theater, which is the big time. And then there's the little dinky theater, the little dinner theater. Jeb is on the phone. Jeb Dexter is on the phone whining to his agent, I guess, about how Criss Angel's playing, Cirque du Soleil, and he's here, in Sioux City with all the old folks. And
so I like that they didn't make him like he wasn't supposed to be like a direct mirror of Criss Angel, that Criss Angel does exist in this universe, but Jeb Dexter is like a Criss Angel wannabe,
yes,
and is like so angry that he can't be Criss Angel.
Yep, I loved that too. I love that. So Dean and Sam are interviewing the older magicians.
It's just Dean. I think Dean is the only one that's there. I think so. At least he's the only one that does the talking.
Oh, that's right. Because he says, I'm Agent Ulrich, and he doesn't say, and here's my partner.
Yeah.
So he pulls out the old Metallica agent. Sorry.
Assuming that these older gentlemen would not know who Metallica is. I assume that's why he used that one.
I know. He got some raised eyebrows.
Even Vernon was like, okay.
Yeah. But he's asking about tarot cards. Do you guys use tarot cards? No, we don't, but somebody else does or did. So maybe go check in with them. Yeah,
it was somebody that, it was A, do you know someone who used tarot cards, and B, who was mad at Vance, or who would want Vance dead, like something that ties those 2 together.
It was somebody that Vance screwed over.
Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, go see Chief over on Bleecker Street. He can tell you.
Bleecker. This little Doctor Strange call out. That was Doctor Strange's inner sanctum, or his Sanctus Sanctorium, I believe is what it was called. So Doctor Strange call out there. Ask for Chief. Now, who doesn't know this scene coming up? Go to Bleecker Street, ask for Chief. Okay, so my question is, did you ever see any of the Police Academy movies?
Oh, I've been watching them on and off as like kind of coming and going because they've been on like the Comedy Central or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All the only thing I have to say about no, I'm sorry. Beverly Hills Cop. That's what's been on. That's what's
Oh,
I've been
okay.
watching because
Okay,
it's
which
like
are
this
awesome.
do 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 do
Do,
do
do,
do
do, do,
do
do,
do
do,
do
do.
do
Axel
do
F.
do do. It's
Do,
the only
do.
song that plays in that fucking movie over and over and over again. All of them. I'm like, can they not have a different song? But anyway, Police Academy. No, I
Police Academy, there's a famous scene where Steve Guttenberg sends at any point during the movie, somebody gets sent to an S&M club as a joke. And so, and anytime they are in the club, the lights change, like the door closes behind them, the lights change, and you hear bum 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 bum. Not Sanford and Son, but this like trumpety music.
yeah.
And then it's like, oh no. And then you see all the guys in the leather with the whips and stuff. So throughout the movie, somebody is sent to this club as a
Got it.
yeah, go ask the guy down at Ask for Chief.
I see.
And so now whenever you hear that music, you know that someone's been sent to the club.
I see.
Which is exactly the same setup.
You think that Dean would have seen Police Academy? Like that would be one of his top 10 movies, Police Academy, and that he would know. But maybe that explains his facial expression later when he does go to 426 Bleecker Street, ask for Chief, and then out comes this like giant, huge guy who used to be a pro football player, the guy in real life, as Chief, being like, "Oh, buddy, I'm gonna make you hurt." But what's your safe
you
word?
haven't been had till you've you haven't been had till you've been had by the Chief. And before we get started, what's your safe word? I mean, he's got the leather, he's got the choker, the whip, and you know, he's gonna have a I love that scene. And Dean, I love that Dean is just kind of he listens to the whole scenario, you know, and he kind of takes a step back. He's like, oh, maybe oh God.
Yeah.
You know? I think that like badass Dean would be able to just be like, nope, done, out. But he's literally like trapped in this situation, which I thought was pretty
he's just
funny.
like, oh, dang, they got me. I wonder what his safe word would be, though.
What would Poughkeepsie?
Poughkeepsie. All right.
So the old magicians got one over on Dean.
Yes, good for them. Back in the hotel while Dean is meeting with Chief, Sam is in his usual research mode when Ruby stops by, who is pissed off that he's there in Magic Town, USA, and not fighting the good fight against all of the seals.
Yeah, and how many have been broken now? Like 34?
34, like, so over half of the 66
Lilith
seals.
is rampaging through these, you know, and you're the only one who can handle her.
Yeah.
You're the only one who can just kill her and stop.
Yeah. Because he's just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the seals are. I don't know where they are. Like, how am I supposed to fight against something that I have zero idea about? Good points. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And he said, well, here's the thing that this was what got me. He says, and it's not the psychic thing I have a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do you have a problem with then?
He meant
because this whole time
Yeah, I know. I caught you in the last episode when he said he did something similar. It's the last episode or the one before, I don't know. But she was basically like, you know what you got to do. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I know what he's talking, like I remember what he's talking about. But I think I didn't want to say anything.
No, I mean, at this point, I know. Yeah. But my question in this moment is, because it stood out to me as, he's not talking about he's not talking about reaching out and exercising people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like,
okay. Yep. So in parentheses, what is it that you have a problem with? But we don't get that answer right now.
And this is okay. Here's another point about this scene between Sam and Ruby. Why through this entire scene is there a freaking toilet in the background? They're standing in a motel room or in the hotel room, and in the background, the bathroom door is open and the toilet seat is up. Through the entire time that they're talking to each other, all this badass talk about Lilith and the seals and the end is coming. Toilet.
No,
toilet.
I didn't
in
see
focus.
it, so. I did not notice it at all.
But then Ruby tries to like, you know, egg him one more time. She's like, you like it. You know it.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're not doing it. Admit it. It feels good.
Yeah. So whatever the secret thing is, it's the magic ingredient that's going to be the thing that beats Lilith. And then she leaves. She's like, come find me when you want to do it again, or whatever.
So this hotel that they're in, by the way, everybody in town is staying in this hotel, it seems like. I kept looking for like, oh, is this a different hotel? No, they're all in the same hotel. It's the Patricia Hotel, which is an actual hotel in British. Yep, it's an actual hotel in British Columbia. And the quote I got was, it's the nicer of the seedier motels. It's the nicer of the seedier hotels.
Oh, that's funny. Who said that? Somebody on the show?
Somebody who had stayed there. It was somebody. It was actually on the site. If you went and looked up,
okay.
Yes.
Very funny. Okay, so after both Dean and Sam's secret meetings, which they keep secret from each other, they meet up at the magic venue and they confront Charlie and Vernon, who were like, listen, son, we run cons for a living. You got to do more than flash us a fake badge.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're like, we're going to arrest you. And they're like, how? You're not feds.
No, you're not.
Totally catches them again. Old guys outsmarting the young guys.
Yep.
But then Dean tries to cover up with an even dumber lie. He's like, yeah, we're actually aspiring magicians. What do? Rings and stuff. And I was like, oh, God, Dean.
Yeah,
I was like, that was worse if they just, go ahead.
Yeah, it just said like I know what you mean. But that plus Sam's like stupid little Rodney Dangerfield like pulling the collar.
Pulling at the collar.
I don't know why that bothered me so much. It's just like no one in real life does that.
Yeah. Oh, this collar's too tight. Oh, I'm so hot under the collar.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Can't get no respect. Luckily, Jay's show starts.
Yeah.
And he is describing the executioner. The executioner. He's in a straitjacket, and he only has 60 seconds to get out of the straitjacket before he is hanged by a noose. Before the trapdoor he's standing on will fall up from his feet and hang him by the neck. Yeah. I have to admit, I love how Jay, when he's in performance mode, his hair gets like super big. Like they tease up his hair.
Thank you. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. This was Barry Bostwick's idea. He came
in with
performance
his hair like
mode. That. Yeah.
Love it.
Yes, I know.
He's got like the silk shirt on, and when he's on stage and he's in performance mode, it's like super fluffy.
It reminded me of like a cockatoo or something, but not like it's not up
it wasn't
in a
faux hockey
kind of thing.
Yeah, it was just
kind
big.
of feathery and curly in different directions. Yeah, I loved it.
Dramatic, performance hair. I loved it.
Yes.
So as he's describing the stunt, there's more people in the audience now. But it's the same type of setup where he steps behind the curtain, or the curtain's closed. The light shines from behind him, and now he's in silhouette as the clock is ticking down, and you see him dramatically struggling against the bonds of the straitjacket.
So while this is going on, something else is happening at the same time. We're cutting back and forth from Jay to Jeb Dexter, who was in his hotel room, staring at himself in the mirror, listening to his own theme song. Like, this is narcissism to an extreme. I loved it, and I know people like this. So it was like, I love seeing people like this.
But he's like rehearsing his look. What I know? He's like practicing his squint and his
turn to the audience.
The flip of his hair.
And his theme song goes like such: mystify, sanctify, rectify. It says, I rule the spirit world. I am the wizard of life. And then there's a verse that says, the darkness closes in and bleeds into my soul. It filters out of me until it makes me whole. It's just so like...
It just rhymes. It doesn't mean anything.
Emo trash.
Oh my God. Oh my God. But he's like blasting it, looking in the mirror.
Yeah, he is so into himself that he cannot see in his own mirror, a reflection of a noose that he had, like, hanging out somewhere, moving by itself off the chair and up into the ceiling and around the ceiling fan. Like, we can see it in his mirror that he is looking into. So if you were not so focused on himself, you would have been able to see this.
And he also would have noticed how cheesy those effects were, by the way. I was like, they did such a good job with the other, quote, magic in this episode that why they reverted to CG, you know,
I do think some of this is because of screens. Like, if you have a decent TV or even like the laptop, if you're watching it on a laptop, I think sometimes those effects
look better,
even cheesier.
I
think they look cheesier because this is like over 10 years ago, right?
Right.
Almost 20. No, 2009. Like 15. So I don't know. They were probably pretty good at the
time. It's just like, God, everything else, all the other magic that they've done in this episode is like really good. You know, like you said, you know, the card flippy trick and in the very beginning, the first thing we see is a magician like turn a balloon into a pigeon, you know?
Right.
At the very, I was like, and I actually went back and watched that.
Hired magicians.
I think they did. I think they did.
That would make
sense
back to me. Mm-hmm.
And looked at it. I was like, how they do it? Yeah. And then to go into the CGI rope snake. I mean, I get they needed it, but I was like, you know.
But most of the other CGI magic is either done behind the curtain, like Jay's stuff.
But it's a great effect. That's what I mean.
It is a great effect, yes. But they're all practical. They're practical effects. They're not like CGI effects.
Right. That's why that's my question.
Why the term that I'm in?
Yes. Yeah, but that's my question. If they were doing everything else practical, why did they go to CGI? Why, you know, I don't think they had to, given
it might have been more expensive to do a practical rope moving by itself. Sometimes robotics and stuff like that can actually be pretty
more expensive.
Pricey. But I do not know. I do not work in Hollywood. I only work in the mere theater world where we are not given the
we don't
liberty
have CGI.
of CGI.
It is all smoke and mirrors. Sorry, it is all smoke and mirrors in our
Okay, so back to this trick.
Yes.
Again, we see Jay struggling behind the curtain. At the last second, the trapdoor falls. You see his body fall in shadow, in silhouette. Yep. Curtain opens, he's fine.
He's fine. And he's on the ground. No noose, no he's jacket. Not in the jacket. He is, ta-da! And it all happens like that. Yeah. And even Dean is like, Dean's that one of those people, he's like, wow! And Sam's like, wasn't humanly possible. That actually was not a magic trick. Yeah. But at the same time, yes, we now jump to Jeb, who is still looking in the mirror and doesn't see the noose snake down from the ceiling fan, wrap him around the neck, and yank him off his feet, and essentially strangles him to death.
I like that the last lyric that it leaves us on is, "I am the wizard of life." Guess not. So, we had asked our friend, our Criss Angel friend, that we assume that there's probably some danger involved in tricks, and you had brought up the Sweeney Todd chair as an example. Yes. Sweeney Todd is a show, a musical. It's notoriously known. Tim Burton made a movie out of it, but in the stagecraft set, there is a barber chair. If you see the movie, just Google a clip of the movie too, if you don't know what we're talking about. But this barber chair is like this, like a trap door. I don't like.
It's supposed to. You sit in the chair, you have your throat slit by Sweeney Todd, and then he presses a lever, and the chair is supposed to flip you out of the chair down a meat chute into the basement where your body is ground up into hamburger. Right. But this chair, it is notorious. The mechanics of this chair and in all the different amalgamations, somebody always gets hurt in the process of being flung, flipped, dropped, trapped, out of this chair.
Yeah. It's also like a really difficult piece of scenery. And I don't know how true this is, but there's like one chair, there's like the Sweeney Todd chair that people rent out whenever they're going to do a production
Yeah.
of it. So it's not something you can really like build, like, oh, we're going to do Sweeney Todd. We'll just design a new chair. It's like, no, let's just get the chair that already exists.
Get the chair. Yeah. The same thing with get the blades, get the razors. You want to get the stunt razors and stuff.
Yeah.
But that chair has also broken a lot of bones. That's the thing. It's also like notorious. It's the one that's broken the most arms on performers. Yeah. Which I find is, get the chair. Really? You want to?
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't get the chair. Maybe the chair doesn't like being the Sweeney Todd chair. But
okay,
yeah.
So anyway, using that as an example, that while, accidents may happen, threat to life and limb is not really an option when it comes to stagecraft sets. So the idea that if this magician did not escape in time, that they would be killed or seriously injured, that's not really a risk that they would take, is it? And he's just said, many injuries have occurred over the years by performers and crew. Same as any stage production, accidents, incompetence, and equipment failure are all factors.
Yep.
So I assume that was kind of a diplomatic answer.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that he did not say anything, but
right. Well, again, going back to the show I just finished, piece of rigging, was not properly rigged.
And then there was that Spider-Man musical that was notorious. Like before it even opened, like people were getting hurt, and there was somebody who I think was like
a back broken, I think.
Yeah, he was a dancer, and now he cannot dance ever again because of something that happened to him. I don't remember if it was a foot injury or back injury, but
it was just things kept going wrong. And same thing with Cirque. There's a number of Cirque shows where equipment failed and people died, performers died.
Yeah.
But so that's the idea, is that it should never be death defying, but it is sometimes. Not by design. Well, even by design, I guess.
Yeah, maybe
otherwise, not intentionally by design. Like there's usually backups and backups. Yeah. And, you also have to, the human body is prone to make mistakes as well.
Soft.
So.
Yeah.
So,
it's fragile, I should say.
I know
all
what
right,
you meant.
So the boys are now back in their hotel room after the show, looking up the Incredible Jay. Like, what's his deal? What's going on? Turns out he was a big deal in the 70s and even played the Radio City Music Hall.
Yep.
But then just got old.
He got old. Yep. Then what happened? Nothing. He got old. So they're like, well, maybe his magic trick is a spell to transfer off death. If he doesn't want to die, maybe there's a spell being worked that transfers death.
Yeah, they're kind of assuming, like, how is he, doing these amazing, literally humanly impossible tricks? It must be with real magic. What do the tarot cards have to do with that? It's kind of where they're at this point.
But Dean, this is another call out. Dean says, I hope I die before I get old, which is, from The Who, talking about my generation. And that kind of stops the boys. It stops Sam and Dean, and they start talking about themselves as Hunter and what their lives will or won't be. Are we going to be old? Like, will we have a chance to get old? And Dean's like, God, I hope not. Can you imagine us being, in our 60s and hunting? And Sam's like, well, yeah. And Dean's like, no. And we're either going to die bloody and it's going to be horrible, or, that's how we go. Well, because we end up like Bobby, that's not great.
Yeah. And Sam is just like, well, Bobby does it. And Dean's like, really? You want to, like, you're looking up to Bobby for inspiration?
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that, but like, that's who, your goal point is. This was an interesting conversation because Sam, he's like, no, I don't, we're not going to be what if we don't have to hunt forever? What if we cut the head off the snake, which was the same language
end this
that Ruby had used to him to try and convince him to
cut the head off the snake,
cut the head off the snake,
kill
Lilith. And Dean very wisely says, yeah, we could cut off the head of the snake, but there's 1,000 heads and 10,000
and another one's going to grow out.
Yeah.
It
This
doesn't
is
end.
never going to end.
Yeah, yeah. But then Dean also kind of leans in a little bit and is like, "Is there something going on?
Yeah.
Something you want to talk about?"
Yeah.
Um, I did like they started this conversation of, will we die before we get old? And Dean says, "Didn't we already? Like we
Yeah.
both already
Yeah.
died. We both died once already."
Yeah.
You know. Yep.
Okay. So they split up for a while because they're gonna. Sam is gonna go look for Jay, and Dean is. I forgot what Dean said he was gonna do, but anyway, they meet up again in the lobby, and they see Jeb being carried out by EMTs in a body bag. Dean pulled his own little sleight of hand and pulled another tarot card from him, which was the Hanged Man. Or Hanged Man.
Yep. Yep. Well, whatever. Now I looked up that one again, depending on which way it's turned. I wrote down the card means egotism, inability to change, missing an opportunity, or traitors. Like that's what the card symbolizes. That's I liked the missing an opportunity.
Yeah.
But egotism definitely, change definitely.
Yeah, I found based on the description of the card, he's probably there being hanged by one foot of his own free will. And it's the card of ultimate surrender, of being suspended in time, and of martyrdom and sacrifice to the greater good. Upright means pause, surrender, let go. Reversed means delays, resistance, stalling, indecision. So here it just goes to show you can really kind of find any kind of meaning. Jeez, I don't want to knock on tarot cards. I really don't. I know that they hold a very special place for a lot of people. But man, it can be really hard to like nail down like what are they supposed to mean?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like you could take, if you didn't like this meaning, then there's this meaning.
Yeah.
Whichever one applies to you.
I also liked that when Sam is like, "Oh, I couldn't find Jay," that Dean gives him a hard time saying he's a 60-year-old. And Sam is like, he's a magician.
Right? And potentially using
magic, yeah. So Jay arrives in his room, and then the boys burst in following him, guns a-blazing. I also say that peekaboo around the corner of the two, like, that never gets old to me.
Just go from, no one notice us, these, two tall, handsome men with guns.
Yes. Boop.
As if Jay was gonna like pop out and be like, "Hey, you kids!" So yes, so they burst into Jay's room, guns a-blazing, and they're like, "All right, we know you did it. We know that you're using black magic, and killing people." Mm-hmm. And Jay is literally taken aback by this. He's like, "Magic isn't real, guys. What are you talking about? I'm not killing people. Magic's just." It's just tricks. Just tricks.
Yeah. He also seems genuinely surprised to hear that Jeb has died.
Yes.
Of like executioner wise, like by a noose and all that. He just seemed like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is when the boys kind of say, maybe he's telling the truth, because I feel like he would have pulled some sort of magic trick right now.
Right. He would have done some mojo on us by now to escape or stop us. And so what do we do now? So they tie him to a chair. They tie the old guy up to a chair and then proceed to have the discussion of, okay, what do we do? And I love this take because it's a oneer. It's a oneer 360.
It's a classic Robert Singer 360 shot.
360 shot. And they do it in one take. Camera pans all the way around Sam and Dean while they're discussing, what, if it's not Jay, what could we, what are our next steps? And by the time the camera circles back around to where they started, you see that Jay has slipped out of the ropes and there's nothing left but an empty chair with a pile of ropes. And they're like, I've seen that coming.
Didn't Sam just say earlier, he's a magician?
Gave us the slip. Um, so they take off down the hall because they're like, how far could he have gotten? You know, so they take off and run down to the lobby and are looking for Jay. Jay, in the meantime, had only slipped into the closet of
I
his
know.
room.
Which I was like, why was that not the first place that they looked? Was in the room.
The old guy not only gave him the slip out of the ropes, gave him the slip out of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the meantime has called the cops on Sam and Dean. So Sam and Dean get arrested in the lobby. And that's the end of that. So the next thing we see is Jay and Charlie in the dressing room of the theater. And they're talking about, the stuff. Like Jay confesses to Charlie, like so much is happening. This is weird. And because I'm not getting better at my tricks. I didn't say, let's do the magician or the table of death because I wanted to do it. I wanted to kill myself. I wanted those knives to kill me. Yeah. This was not me wanting to like have a comeback. And somehow, I don't know how, I lived.
Yeah.
But Vance died.
Yeah.
And then
he's starting to see the parallels between his tricks and surviving them and then the people who are dying the same way. So he's like slowly starting to think maybe the boys are right, even though it's crazy, right? He's like, there's no such thing as magic, but what if it is?
Yeah. I had a thought, he admits that he was trying to kill himself, which shows, how depressed he is. He's old, lonely, doesn't have anything left to offer in his eyes, to the world of magic. My question is, while that's tragic, what would he have done to the audience had he succeeded in killing himself? I was like, where's that thought? Obviously
think it was in there.
It was not. It wasn't
a part of his thought process.
But it was just, I want this to end.
Yeah. Just go out with a bang, I guess. But then Charlie, he was like, listen, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how you're doing this amazing stuff, but you are. So don't throw it away. He's being really supportive. He shouldn't throw it away. It makes him feel young again, which there's a lot of scenes in this episode when you watch it the second time through hit differently.
Yeah. you see Charlie a little bit different.
Yeah. So he does convince Jay to do, again, the table of death. And after Charlie lights the fuse that's going to eventually burn the rope through, he looks at Vernon and he just kind of slips away. Camera zooms in on Vernon. There's a pause after the stab table does eventually fall through the silhouetted person that you see through the curtain. Takes a while for the curtain to open because no one's there to open
Charlie's not there to open it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jay comes through and he survived. And now they're like, the audience is now like,
it's like, yeah, this is what they came to see, you know?
Right.
Yep.
But then you hear a scream off stage. And then when Jay rushes off to find whatever the
scream was,
he sees Charlie on the ground with
bleeding from the stab wounds that he would have received had he stayed on the table.
Yeah.
Jay gets the cops to release Sam and Dean after this. And Sam and Dean say, thanks, what changed your mind? And Jay's like, we have to talk.
Yeah.
And the boys think that Vernon is doing this.
Yeah.
Like they've come to the conclusion that it's Vernon. Obviously it's not Charlie because Charlie's dead.
Right. And whoever is doing it is to help Jay. They're trying to make Jay look good. So they're also kind of benefiting from these good rewards. So who are the closest people to him? Well, now it's just Vernon. Vernon. Yep. Jay is very like, no. He could never do it. Dean says magic kind of real magic is like crack. It's like people do some really surprising things to get a taste of it. And there's a little Sam side eye, like a PSA.
If If only you knew. Yeah, yeah. So Sam and Dean key into Vernon's room, looking for clues. And Vernon is off to meet Jay at Jeb's theater now. Now Jay is at the Headliner theater. And Vernon is super pumped. He's like, guess what? You're now the headliner. Isn't this awesome? And Jay's like, no. And how could you have done that? How could you have killed Charlie? He accuses Vernon of killing Charlie. And Vernon's like, what? How could you think I would do this? And then just then from backstage, you hear Charlie's voice say, you know, don't be so hard on him. But when the guys turn to look to see to see Charlie raised from the dead, it's not Charlie. But it is Charlie. But it's a young Charlie.
Some young guy.
Yeah.
And then back in Vernon's room, when they're looking through all of his stuff, which is basically, I think Dean calls it a magic museum. It's just like a bunch of like old historical or like past magic
memories, posters, programs.
And Dean, in a very, very observant, impressive, like psych-like observation skill, passes by a poster and is like, oh, this guy looks familiar because of a birthmark on his forehead near his eyebrow. Yeah. So, oh, does this guy, the Great Desertini, look familiar to you? And then the camera goes to the young guy who has a birthmark on his face, just like old Charlie did.
Yep. So sorry, I blew that reveal. So it's Charlie.
No, it's okay.
It is Charlie who is risen. Not only has he risen from the dead, he is now young, and he is the same age as the guy who was in the old poster. So young Charlie has been around long enough to have worked for P.T. Barnum, and Barnum died in 1891. Just so you know, that's how long he's been around. And apparently the old circus guy, P.T. Barnum, had handed, before he died, gave Charlie his grimoire. And the grimoire is a book of spells and incantations that wizards, I mean, there's lots of definitions for the grimoire, but it's basically a book of spells and incantations that wizards used to use. And Charlie
was used a lot in World of Warcraft, if I remember correctly.
Oh, grimoire.
Yeah. It wasn't like I don't think it was the grimoire. I think there were different grimoires for things. It's been a long time since I played that game, so
book of spells.
A book of spells.
Book of spells that Charlie didn't think would work, but he's like, yeah, what the heck? I tried one, it worked. He's like, oh, let's try this other one, and it worked. And it turns out that the biggest spell at the end of the book was for immortality. Yeah. And it works.
It works. Vernon, very impressed by all of this.
Seems very eager to hear more.
Yeah. Jay is spooked by it and also like disgusted that he was used to commit these acts of murder. Even if they were punks and assholes and douchebags. They still didn't deserve to die.
Yeah, but Charlie's like, I did this for you as a gift. I saved your life.
Yeah.
Like, I did this for you. Come with me. Come, both of you, come with me. We can all go back and be young again. Not only did I save
your life from you trying to kill yourself, but I've, like, put the spark back in your eyes. Like, I saw it. You loved it. You loved when you were able to do these things, and you're, like, back to your old self.
Yep. And, let's go back. Let's all go back together. And Vernon's like, I don't know. I mean, he doesn't say yes, but he definitely has a big smile on his face and like a gleam in his eye. But Jay says no. He's like, what's the price? Like, what's the catch, for this? And just then Sam and Dean interrupt, with the not so fast.
Yeah.
Which, why?
And what follows here is probably the dumbest the boys have ever been, in my humble opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
They like rush towards this guy who they know can do black magic with guns. Dean immediately gets like caught up by a noose that has like magically come down from the ceiling. Sam shoots a gun at Charlie, who catches the bullet in his teeth.
Yeah, because that's a trick.
Yep.
You know, they
And
won't
then
catch a bullet in the teacup.
apparates just a few feet away. I'm using a term from Harry Potter. That's when they kind of like blink from different locations. Sam comes even closer to him, still pointing the gun at him like it's a
like,
threat.
this time I mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Dumb.
And young Charlie's like, okay, I won't do anything else. I surrender.
Promise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sam drops the gun briefly, but then swings at the guy who can disappear.
And it's only a mirage. Guess what? He's not really there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy's not really there.
Or
and then
he Loki'd. He did like the Loki
right.
trick, you know, where
He
Loki
foofed.
is just like, here, I'm here. No, I'm over there now.
Yes.
And
yes.
and like foofs away and pushes Sam onto the table of death, where then he gets magically strapped in.
Strapped in. Yep.
And then the fuse
and
gets
now
lit.
Yes. So now
Like,
Sam
oh
is in
God,
danger of.
You guys are so stupid. Like, I know that they had to get the boys in a precarious position writing wise, but it was just like
yeah, that was bad.
For all of their like caution and everything else.
Yeah. They go, yeah. And then that whole time, Dean, while he's being strangled, is yelling at Sam, like, get him, you know, while he's being hanged in the air. No, over there, like, get him over there, come on, hurry up type. That's like, come on. And all that was missing through this whole moment was a stupid ticking clock. I don't know why they didn't just magically have one hanging in the air. But throughout all of this, you know, struggle, Dean is struggling, Sam is struggling. Suddenly, young Charlie, grabs his stomach. Mm-hmm. And things seem to stop. And the camera turns to Jay, and it turns out that Jay has stabbed himself in the stomach with a giant blade, which has then has Charlie confused because he looks down and pulls his hands away from his stomach, and he's just bleeding. There's so much blood. Yeah. So in Jay stabbing himself, he's transferred the death stab over to Charlie.
Yes, because he pulled a sleight of hand, because Charlie earlier like flashes all of his tarot cards, but says like, don't touch them, they're like very powerful. But Jay has somehow sleight of handed all of the other cards except for one, which was the magician.
The magician. Yep, that Charlie pulls out of his pocket. Mm-hmm. And the magician, my definition from the magician was new beginning, opportunities. There's a quote, as above, so below, like a manifestation of one's destinies, or of one's desire. Oh, sorry, manifestation of one's desires. It's above, so below. So what you know, basically be careful what you wish for, I think is.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. That's mostly what I got too, was, and also like the term resourcefulness came up, and manipulation, depending on which way.
Right.
But anyway, so that's that card. But as Charlie like crumples down to the floor, he says, "You picked these strangers over me," to Jay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jay looks really sad.
Yeah. And the spell is broken. Sam and Dean are both released after Dean would have long been dead from strangling. Sam was in no danger. I mean, as soon as Sam gets up, of course, the table falls and almost kills him. Jay is distraught.
Oh yeah.
He pulls the knife out of himself, and there's no damage. He's fine, but he is distraught. I mean, the boys are alive, but Jay isn't like, whew, thank God the mass murderer is dead.
Yeah.
So back at the hotel bar where this whole thing started, Jay's lost his magic touch. Like, he can't even really shuffle cards at all.
I think also he's lost his heart, to do it.
The desire to do it,
The desire, yeah. He's like partially really drunk, partially he just doesn't have the will to do it, because as the boys come in and try to thank him for saving their lives and doing the right thing, he's like, I killed my best friend who was like my brother. Mm-hmm. And my other best friend, like, never wants to see me again because
he's gone.
I killed him.
Because I killed, yeah.
Yeah. So really, is this the right thing?
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
I just have to be old and alone now, and that's all I have to look forward to. And he leaves his pack of cards, and the cutie bartender comes by and is like, Jay, you forgot your cards. And he's like, no, chuck them.
No. So very sad.
Yeah.
There's no, like, through the end of that, poor Jay
I
is
know.
left worse than before the episode started. In the
know.
beginning, he was just like somewhat depressed.
Yeah.
You know, and now not only is he alive, but all his friends are gone.
I know.
He's
it
old,
really
alone.
made me like, oh, I wish you wouldn't have I wish you didn't kill Charlie.
Yeah, even though he was a killer.
I know he was a killer, but why did he
kill
have to?
everyone? But he had to.
Yes.
But he doesn't see it that way. I mean, he does, but he doesn't. I mean, he was the hero, but he's not. He doesn't see it that way. He's like, why did I do it?
It's not so black and white right now.
Gene says he's like, oof, could use a beer after all of that. Sam doesn't join him, says, I need to go for a walk. And so he goes off and finds Ruby. What? Shocking. And says, I'm ready. I'm ready to do whatever it is that we're going to do. And Ruby's like, so Sam gets into Ruby's car and they drive off to go do
whatever it is they're going to do.
Yes. Some psychic push-ups, I guess.
Yes. He finally, he acquiesced because he doesn't want to be doing this when he's an old man. So he agrees, okay, if I cut the head off the snake, then maybe we can stop.
We don't end up like Barry, Brad, Jay.
Yeah.
Two questions. Before Sam got in the car, when we first see Ruby parked outside, did you see the hoopty that drove in front of? Did you make note of the car that drove in front of Ruby's car in the alley? It was like this reverse lowrider. I mean, it was like the front. Wait, I wrote it down. It's called. It's a lowrider in back, so the back end of the car is really low, and the front end is really high.
Yeah,
called like a Carolina squat or something.
Yeah.
But this like hoopty drives by. Was that intentional? Because why did they pick out that car? It was just kind of funny. I was like, it wasn't just a car driving by. It was a very specific. Okay. Second question, and this is more of a downer. My second question is, do you think after Jay walked out of the bar that he killed himself? He was going to do it before, and he didn't have, the loss of his friends and his career.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't really want to think about it that way, but I think he's in a more he's left in a way more hopeless state than we found him. And that especially coming up from a high of like, wow, my career is peaking for a second time. I'm coming back. Yeah. This is all I ever wanted was to
got my magic touch back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only did he not have it, like not only does he not have it now, but it wasn't even him. That's the thing. It wasn't his magic. It wasn't his skill. It wasn't his anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was somebody else.
And he drove his friends away by either killing one or the other.
I don't think Vernon should have left him. That's the thing. That made me think really
Vernon was an asshole.
Vernon, yeah.
It was that maybe Vernon will come back around, but I don't know.
Yes.
If you had spent a lifetime, as a trio, and then this kind of explosion happens, and if you kill one of the trio, I don't know.
Yeah. And say the only good thing that came out of this was the fact that Sam and Dean kept getting owned by these old guys.
Super old guys, yeah. Which that reminds me, just to loop it back to our friend. I was trying to sort of describe the episode, a couple of the questions, I was like, this kind of relates to the episode that we're talking about, which is about blah blah blah. Tried to give a very succinct description of it, but But what he had to say to that was, I take offense to the term old. And he's not that old. He's like
No, he's not, which I think is
under
funny
60.
because
He's in his late 50s, I think. But yeah, to finish off like the last few questions that we had asked our friend. We asked he's also a theatrical set designer, and that's how we know him. What are the key differences between designing a theatrical set and a magic one? He said it's basically the same thing. However, anything that has magic involved looks perfectly normal, yet has quote-unquote things going on that you can't see. And to me, the best illusion designs don't give themselves away as a magic trick before the performance has happened. So that must be like a really tricky, no pun intended, tricky thing to try and manipulate.
Right. I mean, like the table of death, you can see the swords, it's that is definitely out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And exposed.
He said this was, I think, just something he wanted to input. It's like there's a distinction between TV stuff and the stage stuff. So when they shot like 100 episodes of Criss Angel's show, there was a need for all of the ideas and materials that you can come up with. Many episodes end with a major stunt or an illusion, sometimes defying death, but his live shows don't really do that kind of thing anymore.
Okay.
So I haven't seen a Criss Angel show. I haven't seen like any magic show beyond the ones that they do at the Ren Fair,
Yeah. I went to, my big show was a Penn and Teller show, which I loved.
Oh, you know what? I lied. I did see a magic show. It was the guy who he was able to fool Penn and Teller. They have that TV show called Fool Us, and they try to guess how they did a magician's magic trick. This one guy, he did fool them. So then he was like on an off-Broadway run for a little while. I think his name was Vitali or something. I can't remember where he was from. But it was pretty good. Chelsea, my friend Chelsea got called up on stage, and he did like a trick with her license, her driver's license, where it made her face disappear on it. It was pretty cool.
That's cool. Government ID.
Yeah. I asked him, have you learned any magic tricks, small or large scale? And have you ever hands-on assisted for an illusion? And he said yes and yes, especially in the early days when there wasn't a lot of money. And I am so mad at myself for like never asking him to do a magic trick.
Well, because why would we even think that he would know one? That's the thing. It's because in our capacity, we only know him as a designer, as somebody who like builds the sets.
But also it's like, but I know that he works for Criss Angel, and I know that he's around magic. So why didn't I ever ask him, hey, do you know any? Can you do a card trick?
Yeah. Question. I think it's just because it was so taboo to talk to him about it.
Yeah, because he was very like hush hush.
Yeah.
And he did say, and I forgot to mention earlier, that anybody that ever comes into contact in the show, even if they go on tour and if there's like local stagehands that have to like pull a curtain and stuff like that, everyone has to sign an NDA.
Sign it. I figure.
And finally, you asked, has your job ruined magic shows for you? And he said 100%. Maybe someday someone new will come along and wow me. There's still an appreciation for really good manipulations of coins and balls. No jokes, please. Card manipulation is way overdone.
Oh, yeah.
But that is kind of the bummer, is like he can never really sit and appreciate
he can't
a magic show.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm going to have to give him a call.
For doing our little interview. It was really interesting.
I'm kind of bummed out that this is happening now, because I just did 2 shows with him in a row.
Oh.
I just did 2 productions with him that I could have been like hounding him for this.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that this episode was coming up.
I know. I forgot.
Well, thank you, friend.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, well, what's our final thoughts about the episode? Did you like it?
Yes. I did and I didn't. I loved the performances. I loved watching Barry Bostwick. I loved watching seasoned performers do that. Their performances were great. The episode itself was meh for me. I got taken out of it a little bit with the CGI rope. But it wasn't quite as impactful as other episodes. I mean, it's it got us to the end where we see, okay, Sam's gonna do something now.
Yeah.
But so not my favorite, not my worst. Oh, how many douchebags did you count?
Oh, hold on, let me think. I included also the title in the beginning, like when it comes on the chyron at the bottom.
Okay.
So let's see, what did I say? 3 in the beginning. Hold on. Let me look at my digital notes. Give me a second. 8?
That's exactly how many I counted.
Okay.
That's exactly how many I counted. And I may have counted when the guys said it together, like in the beginning, both Vernon and yeah, they both said, "What a douchebag," together. I was like, "That's 2."
Okay.
But all the other times it was 1. So I got 8, but I didn't include the chyron. So I'd say
we balanced it out. So between the two of us and our own little counting methods, we got 8.
Yes. Criss Angel's a douchebag.
Yes. So if you were doing a drinking game from this, you would have gotten very drunk in the first 20 minutes.
Yes.
15 minutes of the episode.
And then sobered up at the end, that you would have been like, well, maybe Dean wasn't hanging for as long as I thought.
Yeah.
And if anybody's asking, is Criss Angel a douchebag? I'm going to say, based on the evidence of that being, it's something that was talked about on a radio show for a while, I'm going to say, yeah, I think he's probably a douchebag.
I did ask that. I did ask that of our friend.
But he said, did not answer.
He said, let's just say when you work with someone for 30 years, there are good and bad moments. Yes. Which is a very fair answer. Because even in marriage, if you're together with someone for 30 years, there are good and bad moments.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I'm just going to, yes. Well, that cracked me up. So like the episode, it wasn't like a whiz bang. It wasn't anything truly, the boys didn't have any real dramatic arcs. Like I wasn't like, for this.
Yeah, same. I it's like I liked it, and at the same time, I didn't like it.
Well, because there wasn't a lot of action. I mean, there wasn't a lot of action.
Yeah,
they didn't get to kick in any doors. I mean, they did kind of push their way into an old man's hotel room.
I liked the concept. I liked the concept of like the magic and the transference, but there were some loopholes for me that didn't quite get tied up for me. Like Charlie, when he first died, how did he come back to life, and why didn't he come back to life again at the end? If he got killed once, how come he couldn't do it again after Jade stabbed himself / him? It was a little heavy on the kind of metaphors or the PSAs, when they're talking about getting older and the magic
you're my
like
brother,
crack.
You're my brother, you're my brother.
It was heavy in that way.
Yeah.
Heavy-handed, not like heavy, like I can't handle it.
No.
It was you over the
beating you over the head with it. Yes. The trying to make the magicians, the brothers, like Sam and Dean. It's like
I feel like it would have done better as like kind of a standalone episode and not necessarily trying to tie in the movement of Sam's trajectory. Yeah. But I feel like they were trying to fit in too many things into one episode. And I do understand, you only have 45 minutes, so how can we, get all the things that we need? Next.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
move the arc forward. Yeah, I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite. I think it's because it was low on action, and it wasn't the boys being superheroes. I mean, super heroes.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
It's good. I love perfect choice in casting. All the way around.
I loved seeing Barry Bostwick, and he did such a good job. He did such a good job of being like so hopeless and distraught.
Yeah.
He's such a good actor, and he's so, I don't know if I would say he's underrated, but I guess I don't think he's taken very seriously sometimes, or at least I feel that, especially the choice of shows and movies that he's done. But
I don't know if you remember, a while back there was a commercial, and I want to say it was a Super Bowl commercial from a number of years ago, where all these famous Barrys were being mentioned, and at the very end, it's Barry Bostwick comes out, and he's like, yeah, and me, Barry. And they're like, who are you? And he's like, Barry Bostwick. They're like, who's Barry Bostwick? And that's how like the commercial ends.
It's kind of ringing a bell for me.
Berry
Kind
Blossom.
of.
I'll have to look
I wonder
it up.
if it was for like a berry flavored something or other.
Yeah,
I'll Google it. I'll Google it and watch it. But,
it's funny that I can remember the punchline, but not the product.
Okay.
So, all right, next week.
Next week, after school special, or whenever we do the episode next. I don't want to promise next week, just in case.
Just in case. I watched part of this and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna love this episode. And then I watched the whole thing. I was like, this is not what I was expecting.
Oh. I kind of remember this one. I remember a couple scenes from it, and I remember that the actors for the young Sam and Dean were different than what I'm used to. You know?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So.
But okay, so thanks all for joining us here for Criss Angel as a douchebag. I wonder how many times we said douchebag in an episode.
Not as many as I was expecting.
You don't think we said douchebag more than 8 times? I think that we did.
Well, when you're talking about douchebags,
listeners, let us
a free
know.
Sticker to anyone who can count the number of times we said douchebag, including this.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to follow us or subscribe to us anywhere you can find podcasts. If you could also leave us a very good rating on Apple Podcasts, that would be great. We would appreciate you very much. You can find us anywhere on social media. We are at Salt and Burn This everywhere. And you can also find us on YouTube, and you can listen to us that way.
Yes, which some of you have, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's going to wrap it up.
Yep. I want to do one final shout out, if that's okay. I'd like to shout out to Sammy Salloway, who was in a movie. And this movie is now currently playing on Amazon Prime. And I watched this movie, and it scared the living pants off me. And Sammy Salloway has so much FaceTime in this movie. Oh my God, the character. Sammy, you're wonderful. You were brilliant. I loved it.
Thank you so much.
So the name of this movie, ready everybody, write it down. Horror in the High Desert. What's the lady's name?
Minerva.
You said Medusa.
Yes.
So the High Desert 2, Minerva.
Yes.
Get ready to have the pants get off you.
It's very scary. I was like anxiety ridden the whole time when I was watching it.
So we'll talk about it more next time.
Yeah, we'll give that more of a feature, because it's really more of my friend Dutch who like directed and wrote and produced it all like from afar, I guess, because he was in Nevada and I was in New York. So we'll talk more about that. But thank you. That's very kind of you to mention.
I loved it.
Okay, so we will see you next time for our after school special. Bye, y'all.
Bye.